with news from across the Federation, spanning the region and covering the globe. This is the Kyssfm SKN News Now Morning Edition, your one true source for news. And now your presenter.
Good morning. Today is Wednesday, 14th February 2018. I'm Ebony Brandon. These are this morning's top stories. Nationally, Honorable Nigel Carty says democracy is under threat in St. Kitts and Nevis. Internationally, South Africa's ANC says Jacob Zuma must leave office. And in sport, the Winter Olympics are seeking to attract young viewers. We also have today's weather forecast and camp update. Now for a look at these news developments in detail. Although touted as an uncontentious piece of legislation by its mover, Honorable Ian Liburd, the debate of the St. Christopher Aaron Seaports Authority Amendment Bill 2018 ended up raising serious questions from the opposition benches about how the amendments could very well threaten SCASPA, lead to its privatization, and possibly result in the unprecedented seizure of SCASPA's assets should it default on the loan for the second cruise ship pair. Given the national implications of the bill, it was surprising that Speaker Honorable Michael Perkins thought it appropriate to hasten the end of the debate by allowing Honorable Ian Liburd to wrap up the sitting, knowing that Opposition Leader Right Honorable Dr. Denzel Douglas and Senator the Honorable Nigel Carty wished to make presentations. After this latest move by Speaker Perkins, the opposition has again expressed the firm belief that there is a definite attempt by the government in collusion with Speaker Perkins to ensure that they are silenced. According to Honorable Nigel Carty, this rapidly increasing threat to democracy in St. Kitts and Nevis must be taken seriously.
What I think should really be of greatest concern, in fact greater concern to the people of St. Kitts and Nevis, is what everybody who's paying attention sees as the deliberate, willful undermining and thrashing of our democracy in St. Kitts and Nevis, and using the halls of our parliament to promulgate that. That is what is serious to my mind, the most serious issue that is confronting us as a country right now. You have a speaker who is bent on being puppeteered or puppeted by the members on the government side, who, in my view, deliberately conspires with members of the government side to shut up the members on the opposition.
Marcella Liburd, who at one point was Speaker of the National Assembly, also addressed the flexibility of the rule under which the Speaker acknowledges persons standing to make presentations. She said that this definitely requires the Speaker to apply some good judgment and discretion, particularly when members of the House have not spoken and wish to do so. Ms. Liburd also explained how the matter of who would speak and when was handled by the Leader of Government Business in the past. Honorable Eugene Hamilton now holds that position. However, Ms. Liburd says he makes no attempt to engage with opposition members at all.
What happens is they will usually go on both sides of the House to find out when you want to speak. So there was always an arrangement, a cordial arrangement between both sides, where you would go and you say, well, when you want to speak, and so on. So you never had that particular issue raised. It says, no, you have a Leader of Government Business who really doesn't care. He doesn't say anything to us, doesn't access anything, and then it's just a whole conspiracy among them. What I'm trying to say is because today, on the government side, was their Senator, Honorable Wendy Phipps, Honorable Lindsey Grant, and this is about a second P, and he's the Minister of Tourism. They never spoke. Now, who would think that none of them would speak? You understand? So if none of the economists may not just finish, we won't just jump up, because you have three persons, apart from the person who's wrapping up, on the government side, who still haven't said anything. There is no rule as such, a hard and fast rule. Because that rule, as Cathy says, can apply in these situations. I've had on many occasions just what he's talking about, where you see somebody first, but you have to use your judgment. And so if you see the person who is going to wrap up the bill first, you see that person, let's assume you see that person first. and you have two other people who haven't spoken. You as the speaker, what is your duty? I don't think he understands what his duty is to facilitate debate. His duty is not to take sides.
And in other news this morning, police are still searching for the man who carried out an armed robbery of the Sandy Point supermarket on Boxing Day last year. A few weeks ago, police issued a wanted poster for Vincent Taylor, also known as Shungi, Bongo or Liar. Taylor is about 30 years old, weighs 160 pounds and is 5 feet 10 inches tall. He's of medium build and his black hair is not well kept. Police say the wanted man, who is known to live in Sandy Point and McKnight, is considered armed and dangerous. Information leading to his capture could be eligible for a reward. Persons knowing Vincent Taylor's whereabouts are urged to contact the police urgently or to call Crime Stoppers at 1-800-TIPS. In international developments this morning, South Africa's president is expected to make his first public comments after his party, the African National Congress, formally asked him to step down. If the 75-year-old Jacob Zuma does not quit, he could face a vote of no confidence in Parliament. Famida Miller has the details.
After days of confusion and uncertainty, this press briefing was expected to introduce some clarity into the future of President Jacob Zuma. But while the ANC confirmed it had asked the president to resign, the party did little to assure South Africans that will happen anytime soon.
As we communicated this decision, obviously we are giving him time and space to respond. We haven't given him any deadline to respond. So I don't know what will happen, but let's leave it to President Jacob Zuma.
This was an opportunity for the ANC to be decisive, regain the public's trust, and by taking the lead in removing a president accused of being corrupt. But the ANC's message was mixed, saying it had asked Zuma to step down, not because he had done anything wrong, but for the sake of stability.
Mr. Zuma is a very shrewd intelligence operator and has knowledge of many of the covert or covered up actions of ANC members during their time in exile. So he has a lot of intelligence on people who are either in positions of power now or likely to be in positions of power in the near future.
While the ANC appears to have taken a negotiated approach, the opposition wants next week's vote of no confidence against Zuma to be brought forward. With an ANC majority in Parliament, Zuma has survived 8 other motions of no confidence. The ANC says it has no plans yet to bring its own motion against the president. Now, this is a party that's either confident that Zuma will step down or is prepared to wait it out. The ANC says it expects Zuma to respond to its decision to recall him by Wednesday.
And in sport this morning, while the Winter Olympics is a huge global event, organizers are concerned about how many young people are watching. A survey in South Korea before the Games showed those aged under 20 were largely indifferent about the Olympics. Lee Wellings reports.
If Summer Olympics are the biggest, the cool Olympics come in winter. There is a vibe amongst competitors and spectators that can give the Games a youth appeal. So why did market research in Korea before the Pyeongchang Games paint such a worrying picture for Olympic bosses? The survey said under 30s, particularly under 20s, were more excited about Sochi 4 years ago than their own games. But the International Olympic Committee says it's evolving to appeal to the younger market.
We've developed the program specifically in certain ways to reach out to young people through youth-focused events. It's a big part of Olympic Agenda 2020. It's a big part of what we're doing with the Olympic program generally. You see that coming to life here in Pyeongchang. You see the results with the engagement of young people and the way that the young athletes themselves are responding to that energy.
There is plenty to attract young people. It's not just the sports, but the sound and look, particularly fresh events like slopestyle. Despite the bitter cold and wind, it was 90% skill and 10% fashion parade, with plenty of teenagers competing.
1, 2, 3.
But sport is now consumed in a different way. The IOC feel they've connected with new generations by the events they include and by engaging with them on social media platforms. Is it working? Well, this is known as Coffee Street in the Gangnam coastal area. Many of the Pyeongchang events take place in a cluster close to here, and there's plenty of visitors.
When I talk to my friends, they don't seem to have such a great interest in the Olympics because young people do not have spare time to be interested.
My older friends seem to know about the Olympics when I talk to them, whereas younger friends don't seem to have a big interest and become more indifferent.
And then there's esports, a huge deal in Korea first. It spread so fast globally that tens of millions prefer it to traditional sports. It can't be ignored, but it's not part of the Olympics yet.
Does that mean we'll see esport on the program of the next Olympic Games or Olympic Winter Games? Probably a step too soon. Right now it's about engagement through the Olympic Channel, through our partners, out to that community, find ways that we can engage with them and see where that takes us beyond that.
The young Koreans we've spoken to at these Olympics are excited and proud. But across the nation, some are uneasy about the Games being used as a political tool by their leaders and those of North Korea. The International Olympic Committee knows it needs to reach out to these young Koreans and the younger generations everywhere to keep these 5 Olympic rings special.
And with that look at sport, it's now time for a look at today's weather forecast, valid until 8 a.m. tomorrow. Over St. Kitts and Nevis, conditions will be sunny and fair to partly cloudy tonight, with only a slight chance of a brief passing shower. Seas are rough with swells of 2.4 to 3.1 meters or 8 to 10 feet. Warnings remain in place for small craft operators and sea bathers against hazardous sea conditions. Winds are east to northeasterly at 14 to 23 miles per hour, with higher gusts over open waters. The sea level pressure is 1,019.9 millibars or 30.11 inches. The sun will rise tomorrow at 6:37 a.m. and set today at 6:13 p.m. Across the rest of the eastern Caribbean, a fresh to brisk trade wind flow generated by a relatively strong high-pressure system will continue to produce relatively high wind and rough seas. Therefore, from Puerto Rico and the British Virgin Islands southwards to Trinidad and Tobago, skies will be fair to partly cloudy in general, with brief periods of quick passing showers developing. And that brings us to the end of this morning's news presentation. Before we go, a recap of this morning's top stories. Nationally, Honourable Nigel Carty says democracy in the country is under threat. Internationally, South Africa's ANC says Jacob Zuma must leave office. And in sport, the Winter Olympics is seeking to attract young viewers. I've been your presenter, Ebony Brandon. Thanks for tuning in. Stay with us. Up next, Carib Update.